Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is how to play Can't Take My Eyes Off You by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So first and foremost, what you want to do is put your capo on the 5th fret. And to start off, for the intro, we have 3 chords. We have a D major, a D minor, and a C major chord. And that would sound something like this. Now, the way I strum on my right hand, I mute it. You can play it without the mute. You can tune it, play it however you want to play it, but this is just my interpretation of it. So D, D minor, and a C major chord. So it goes like this. So intro, to kick that off, D major chord. What you want to do is you're not playing the low E string on any fret. So then you have the low E and the A. You're not playing these 2 strings. So those are muted. You're not playing those. So what you're playing is an open D string. Then you take your index finger and put it on the 2nd fret of the G string. Then you put your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and then you put your middle finger on the high E string of the 2nd fret. So 2, 3, and 2. Get closer, get a close up on that. And these, when I say 1st, 2nd, 3rd fret, it's all relative to the capo. So for those of you who are just starting out as beginners, whenever you put a capo, imagine this part of the neck doesn't exist anymore. Anything above the capo doesn't exist anymore. So when I refer to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and so on, I'm referring to wherever the capo is. So this is where the capo is technically fret 0, fret 1, fret 2, fret 3. So D major chord. Then he goes into a D minor. And a D minor is just the same string, so you don't play the low E or the A, and then you play the open D string. And then you put your middle finger, so it's very similar to a D chord, but in this case you take your middle finger and put it on the 2nd fret of the G string, put your index finger on the 1st fret of the B string, then you take your ring finger and put it on the 3rd fret of the high E string. So you have 2nd on the G, 1st on the B, and 3rd on the high E. Then we transition over to a C chord. A C chord is just, you're not playing the low E string, so don't play that. Then you take your ring finger and put it on the 3rd fret of the A string. Take your middle finger and put it on the 2nd fret of the D string. Then you take your index finger and put it on the 1st fret of the B string. All together. So we have to recap, we have a D, D minor, and a C. Then we go into verse 1. So he uses some of the same chords, however, we transition to some chords that are a little more complicated if you're a beginner. So to start off, when he says, "You're just too good to be true," he's playing a C. Then he does a C major 7, and luckily for you guys, a C major 7 is just it's a C major chord, the same exact finger, the same exact shape. All you do is lift up your index finger. So here's the difference. So to start off, your first line is C, index finger, C major 7. Hear the difference? Then for the 3rd line, when he says, "You'd be like heaven to touch," you have a C major shape, so go back to your normal C major shape. Now take your pinky and put it on the 3rd fret of the G string. So I have my C major, C major 7, then I have a C7. Then when he says, "I want to hold you so much," you go to an F chord, F major chord. And all that is you take your, if you're more than a beginner or you're trying out bar chords, it's actually an F major chord is a bar on the first. But in my case, because the capo kind of gets in the way with the bar, what I do is I make an F major shape, and then I put my thumb, so I'm kind of cheating in a way, I put my thumb over the first fret of the low E string. But for those starting out, if you can't do a bar yet, then I would suggest not doing it and just play without the thumb, without even playing the low E string. You can get away with it. Once you start playing more and getting more advanced, then you can do the full bar, or you can put the thumb over the first string. So an F major chord would be, the textbook way would be, your bar on the first would be first fret on the low E string, then you take your ring and pinky on the A and D string of the third fret, then you take your middle finger and put it on the G string of the second fret. Then you take your index finger and put it on the B and high E string of the first fret. If you can do the full bar, then you bar the entire first. If you can't do the full bar, then make that F major that I just showed you and put your thumb over the first of the low E string. So after the F major, he goes into an F minor. So it's the same F chord shape, very similar. The difference is you're taking off your middle finger, so it's not playing anything, and you're moving your index finger up. And now you're barring, I'm barring the G, B, and high E string of the first fret. So I'm doing this, see the high E, the B, and the G, and I press down. So I'm doing half a bar. Then I take my ring and pinky finger and put it on the A and D string of the third fret. If you can do the thumb or the full bar, then you put it over the low E string of the first fret. Goes back to a C when he says, "And I thank God I'm alive." "You're just too good to be true," D major. On the word "can't," goes to a D minor. "Take my eyes," C major chord, "off you." And that's the first verse. And the second verse is the exact same progression. Then when they go into the first and second verse are the exact same chords in the same sequence. Then he transitions to the bridge when he says saying the da 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 da, that part. You're using the same chords, however, in this case, now we're introducing a G major, an A minor, and an A major chord. So to start off, it would sound like this: D minor and G. Right? So we already went over the D minor. So in the first couple da-das, he does D minor. Then he goes into a G major. A G major is just your middle finger, your middle finger on the third fret of the low E string. Then you take your index finger and put it on the second fret of the A string. Then you leave your D, your D and G open. Then you put your ring and pinky finger on the third frets of the B and high E string. All together. Let me get it closer for you guys. You have middle finger on the third fret of the low E, first on the A, on the second, and then you have your ring and pinky on the third fret of the B and high E. Sounds like this. Goes back to C, C major. Then we have an A minor. And all that is you have an open A. You have your second fret of the D and G string on the second fret with your middle and ring finger. Then you take your index finger and put it on the first of the B string. Then you have an open high E string. All together. goes back to a D minor, G major, C. Then it goes da 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 da. That part, you go to an A major. So he goes from a C, A major. Boom, right? He goes into the chorus. So an A major is just going to be, you're not playing the low E string. That's muted, so don't strum that. You have an open A string, and you have a second with your middle, ring, and pinky fingers. Some people do it with their index, middle, and ring finger. I like to do it my last three fingers in order. It's just easier for me, but it's whatever your preference. So you have open A, then you have a second on the D, G, and B string. Then you have an open high E string. So all together. So he goes from C into A. Boom. Then when he starts belting out in the chorus, I love you, baby, he goes from, instead of using a D minor that we learned earlier, he actually does a D minor 7. So it's very similar to a normal D minor. So the normal D minor was, if you remember, it looks like this. The difference here is now you're not using your ring finger at all. So get rid of the ring finger, it's not there. You still have your second on the G string of the second fret. But now you take your index finger and you bar the B and high E string of the first fret. So it sounds like this. So here's the difference. Here's a D minor. Here's a D minor 7. Slight tone difference. If you find yourself having difficulty with either of them, if you have difficulty with the D minor, try the D minor 7. If you have difficulty with D minor 7, do D minor instead. So he goes from, when he says, I love you, baby, D minor 7. I love you, baby. And if it's quite all right, G major. I need you, baby, you do an E minor. E minor is just open, low E, second fret with your middle and ring finger on the A and D string, open, open, open. So it's just two fingers on the A and the D on the second fret. I need you, baby, to warm. On the word lonely, he does an A minor 7. So we learned an A minor earlier. It's this. Here's an A minor 7. A minor 7. Slight difference. Now an A minor 7 is just, the shape looks like this. Get a close up. You have your muted low E string. You have an open A. You have the second fret with your ring finger on the D string. You have an open G string. And then with your index finger, you put your first on the B string. And then you have an open high E string. And that's pretty much the first verse and the second verse and the chorus. Now, when you go, and it's just repeated. So he does D minor 7 for the chorus. I love you, baby. If it's quite all right, G. E minor, I need you, baby. To warm the lonely night, A minor 7. I love you, baby, D minor 7. G, trust in me. When I say C. A, oh, pretty, D minor 7. Baby, don't let me down, G. Oh, pretty baby, E minor. Now that I found you, A minor 7. Stay and let me love you, D minor 7. Go back to D minor, let me love you, G major. Now here's where the song gets a bit complicated. For those of you who aren't, for those of you who are starting off, this probably isn't the best song for you. However, this is very good to at least get an introduction as to what chords, if you take guitar seriously, what chords you're going to end up playing. So for the third verse, there's a change in key. So it goes more towards like a flatter sound. So before we were playing in a C major to start off in the first verse. Now for the third verse, when he says you're just too good to be true, we're playing an E flat. So an E flat would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you have the 6th fret. So technically it'd be the 11th. So you have a 6th fret relative to the capo. you have a bar, and then you take your ring finger and bar the D, G, and B string of the 8th fret. You're just too good to be true. E major 7. So what I do there is you have your flat. So you have this bar on the 6th, and you have the half bar with your ring finger on the D, G, and B string of the 8th with your ring finger. And all you do there is you take you're still using your ring finger, but however, now you're no longer playing the G string. So now it's barred with the index on the 6th fret. So that's the only difference between the E flat and the E flat major 7. Here's the difference: E flat, E flat major 7. Kind of hard to play. Then he has an E flat 7, which would be just the bar on the 6th, and then your D and G string on the 8th fret. Then he has an A flat, which is I want to hold you so much. So you're going to be on the 4th fret. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you make a, you make a bar on the 4th. Then you take your A, and you're playing the A and D string on the 6th fret with your ring and pinky. So A and D, 6th fret. Then you take your middle finger and put it on the 5th fret of the G string. Then now, if you can't do a full bar, do the mini bar that I was talking about earlier, which is like the index finger on the 4th fret of the B and high E. So it sounds like this. Or you can put your thumb over the 4th fret of the low E string. So here's full bar, mini bar, or bar with the thumb. Then he says, at long last, love has arrived. You play an A flat minor. So in this case, it'd be, all you're doing is moving down all your fingers down 1 fret, or 1 string, excuse me. So now so it sounds like this. So you have your bar on the 4th, full bar. Then you have your D and G string with your ring and pinky finger on the 6th fret, middle finger on the B of the 5th fret, and then now you have your index finger on the 4th fret of the high E. Here's an A flat minor. Goes back to E flat on the word, and I thank God I'm alive. F, you're just too good to be true. F minor, can't take my eyes. E flat off of you. Then he goes back into the bridge, which is the da da. So D. And he sends off into the chorus. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys like this tutorial. I know it's very in-depth and there's a lot of different chords. Although, how do I say it? It's these chords are relative to the capos, so imagine what it would be like without it. So without it, you'd have a lot of sharps and flats and flat minors and, sharp minors and things like that. So I hope that this capo version that I came up with is able to simplify it for you. So if you really want to get to play the song, this is how to play it. If you can't play any of the 7th chords or the flats or the flat minors and things like that, just get away with playing the major chord. So if it's an E flat, play an E major chord. If it's a E flat 7, play an E7. If it's a D minor 7, play a D minor, so on and so forth. So anyways, guys, this has been Can't Take My Eyes Off You by Frankie Valli. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I thank you guys for watching.